Hi there. Thanks for joining CPG Bytes, a series of short video segments from Treasure Data, where we chat about the latest news and industry trends and read between the lines to provide our perspective and insights. And with us today, we have a special guest, Shelly Kramer from Futurum Research. Welcome, Shelly, to CPG Bytes.
Hello, great to be here.
And Shelly recently completed a research report outlining the new table stakes for CPG companies. David, can you give us an overview of the report? And then I will ask Shelly to give us some insights from it.
Absolutely, Stephen. It's great to see you. So, yeah, as we were out in the CPG marketplace and talking with prospects and talking with our customers, there's a lot of interest around CDPs. I mean, it's almost been exponential in terms of the interest, and we had some assumptions around why that is. But oftentimes, when you're kind of living within that space, it's always good to get an expert outside opinion. And so we reached out to Futurum to actually dig deeper, try to uncover the trends, uncover what's really maybe driving this interest from a CDP perspective. Obviously, part of it is, I think, driven by some of the other trends like direct-to-consumer growth, which we'll talk about probably a little bit here in a moment. But the real purpose was for us to get an outside-in view from some experts at Futurum to be able to understand what's really going on within CPG and why there's such an interest around the CDP market space.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And thank you, David. That's absolutely true. And now it is my pleasure and honor to introduce Shelly Kramer, the founding partner and lead analyst with years of experience in the CPG industry, to our CPG Bytes. Shelly, would you like to briefly introduce yourself to our audience?
I think you already did. Well, hello. As Stephen mentioned, I'm one of the founding partners and a lead analyst at Futurum Research. And I worked on this research that we partnered with Treasure Data on, and I thought it was particularly interesting, especially as we've seen a massive shift in the CPG market to direct to consumer. And I apologize in advance. When we talk about this, we use so many acronyms, DTC and CDP and CGP, CPG, and it's like all of a sudden your head swims a little bit. But anyway, I think that we've seen a very real shift in the marketplace with consumer packaged goods companies understanding the value of going direct to consumer and trying to figure out how to do that. And, one of the things that we found, one of the key insights that we uncovered in this report is that, hyper-personal localized ad spend was really important, and that just general advertising, just throwing it out there, throwing ads on TV or throwing ads on radio, that kind of generalized advertising won't cut it. And what we're seeing is that it's impossible to send the same message to every customer and to actually compel them to action. And that's what messaging is supposed to do, right? That's what advertising is supposed to do. It's supposed to get my attention, and it's supposed to make me want to look further and hopefully compel a buy, right? And so I think that what CPG companies have learned is that from the DTC world is that, hyper personalized, being where your customers are with messages that are personalized specifically to them, will have a huge impact, don't you? Don't you agree, David?
Absolutely. And, one of the things that I think not only, as you said, is it important now, but you could argue it may become even more important as we come out of COVID, right?
Right.
Because I think every state, every locality is going to open up at a different rate, and being able to understand and understand like what's going on in people's lives. Are they going to school? Are they not going to school? What's going on, right? In terms of, and of course, it depends on the product categories, but that hyper localization, if you will, I think is going to be really, really important with the backdrop of COVID. Interestingly, one of our customers is a CPG over in Japan called Line Corporation. And what they talk about, it'd be interesting to see what you think about this. They talk about using their CDP to understand their consumers' unspoken needs. Isn't that a great term, unspoken needs?
Absolutely. And it's tremendously important.
Yep, exactly. And they use that then to not only, to your point about the personalization of advertising, but they also even use that to inform, product development, understanding
Absolutely.
sustainability, so on and so forth. That's going to impact packaging and product development and all sorts of things like that. So
Well,
it's interesting to see where this is going.
and that's the thing. The data will tell you so much. The data will tell you stories you weren't even looking for. And that's really why, I so believe a CDP is truly a game changer, because, being able to have, all parts of the company's data connected and being able to have real-time insights. And, you mentioned a pandemic and different parts of the country or different parts of the world doing things at different times, and being able to look and see what's happening in Seattle, Washington, compared to what's happening in Kansas City, Missouri, compared to what's happening in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And being able to look and then being able to do, what the next key insight that I want to throw out is, which is really focusing on retaining customers, right? And I think that we're seeing a renewed commitment to retaining customers and understanding just how important customer loyalty is. And in today's world, you're only as valuable to your customer as what you did for them yesterday. And so if you're not making an effort to, and I'll step back and think about this. Think about when you bought something. I bought some compression socks a few months ago that I really loved. And I gave them to an elderly neighbor who needed some compression socks. And so I needed a pair of compression socks again. And I went digging through my drawers, looking for, socks that I use when I travel. And I couldn't find them. And I'm like, what was the name of that brand? Because I really like them and I'd like to buy from them again. But they probably found me on Instagram, right? And so I actually did remember the name of the brand and went back and bought another pair of socks to replace the ones that I had given away. But my point is, I had to work at remembering, and I'm good at this. Okay. I'm good at remembering who it is I bought from, but a lot of people aren't. And so if you're not making a dedicated commitment to inspire loyalty and to use the data that you have about your customers to connect more deeply with them, to connect more regularly with them, to say, hey, Shelly, I know you bought these compression socks, but chances are good, if you liked compression socks, you might also like these other products that we sell that you might not know about. Those are the sort of things that I think that we're seeing, and understanding that customers, they don't use digital, they are digital. And that's what a lot of our research has shown, is that just understanding that our customers are on the go, they're distracted, they're fragmented. The more you can do to make their lives easier, the easier it will be for them to be loyal to you. And everybody wins in that instance.
Yeah, you almost have to be kind of woven into the fabric of their life, right?
Yeah.
How did you phrase that? They don't use digital, they are digital. I like
Correct.
that.
Correct.
That's a really good insight. I would kind of piggyback on what you said, is that in order to drive that loyalty, you absolutely have to know them. I have to know Shelly as Shelly, right? If you know Shelly as Shelly, now that just builds trust, and that trust then builds that loyalty, basically. I am loyal to brands that I feel like know me, but also that I trust. And those kind of go hand in hand. In order to build that trust, you have to know me. So.
Well, and that's really where, tailored products and personalized service and personalized messaging and engagement with customers and the speed at which you can make that happen. That's the holy grail right there. And you can't make any of that happen if you're not using the right technology solution. And that's really, again, where, a customer data platform comes into play, and also the right customer data platform, because there's a lot of solutions out there, or we see organizations, this group is using this solution and this group is using this solution, and it's the Wild West out there, and things are siloed, and that's not the answer. The best answer is something, again, I know I mentioned this before, where the data is available across the board throughout all parts of the organization in real time, so that research and development can use it, product development can use it, marketing can use it, sales can use it. I think that's really important.
Absolutely.
Let's see, I was going to go on with another key insight, or the key trends. And this plays off of my other point, is really all about a need to be more agile. And, the pandemic demonstrated how vital it is to be agile, and to be able to shift from, oh my gosh, customers are coming into the store, to, oh, now I need to let customers have a way to order online and do curbside pickup. One of the things, I'll give you an example of a quick shift. I have a Whole Foods store in my neighborhood, and I was in there yesterday. And since pandemic times, what Whole Foods has implemented is a sort of a customer line system, where, instead of walking up to an individual register, all the customers wait in one line, 6 feet apart, and then a checker comes and gets you. Okay, when she's available, he's available, right? But gosh, this line sometimes is so long, and you forget sometimes that it's going to take you longer than it normally will, because you've got to wait online. And what I noticed yesterday when I was in the store was that they had installed probably 8 self-check options. And this is not a gigantic Whole Foods store. This is just kind of an average size Whole Foods store, but it's a pretty new one. And to me, that's an example of a really quick pivot. This is a problem. We need to serve customers more quickly. We have the data. We can see what kind of volume of business we're doing. They can probably even gauge average customer wait time. I'm sure that data is available to them. And here's a solution. We're going to get these self-checkout stands in so that people can get themselves checked out. That's just one example. And there's a 1,000 other examples out there. This is top of mind because it just happened yesterday. But my point is really about agility and being able to quickly move. And some of that is using the data that you have in your customer data platform that's showing you what's trending, what's happening in your market, what's happening across the world, all those nuances, and then being able to shift quickly. And maybe sometimes that's not even, that. And I think that this is another thing that CPG brands can learn from direct to consumer brands, is that, 100% perfect doesn't have to be the goal. 75% perfect sometimes is fine for now, and when you make a pivot, part of making a pivot and being agile is saying, okay, here's what we're going to do, and we're going to see what happens here and how this shakes out. And then we're going to tweak it along the way. So we may be at 75 today, but in a short period of time, we're going to be at 85 and 95 and at 100% effectiveness, and we're going to be good. And I think sometimes our tendency, especially with large CPG brands, is to not do anything until we think we can get it 100% perfect.
Exactly. What is the saying? Never let perfection be the enemy of the good, right?
Exactly.
One thing, this whole notion of agile, I was watching a webinar, I don't know, it's probably 6 weeks ago. I can't remember now who said this, but I thought this was pretty insightful. They said that, their prediction for 2021 is all the disruption and sort of like chaos, if you will, that we saw in 2020 on the supply side, out of stocks and supply chains being in all disarray, we're now going to see that same level of disruption, if you will, and volatility, I guess is a better way of putting it, on the demand side in 2021. And people, loyalties are shifting and their buying behaviors are shifting, and it's going to be all this volatility on the demand side. So the companies that have access to the data, that know their customers and can work in an agile way to react to that, are going to be the winners.
Yeah, speaking of the demand side, I was reading something earlier today that I thought was really interesting, that Uber and Lyft are really struggling because of increased customer demand. And I experienced this myself Thursday morning. I had an early morning appointment. I'm such a nice woman to be married to that I did not want to make my husband get up at 7 o'clock and take me to where I needed to be. And I was just going somewhere to be dropped off. So it was super easy. And so I thought, no big deal. I'll call an Uber, which, by the way, I haven't ridden in a lot of Ubers over the course of the last year. Probably you haven't either. But as and thankfully I started out a little bit early, but I looked for an Uber and it was like, yeah, 0 Ubers available, see you, sis. And so I quickly pivoted and drove myself, and it was no big deal. But my point is, customer demand is, you can't ever count on it. And so being able to look at those trends and being able to, and I realize Uber and Lyft are not in the CPG business, but I thought it was just an interesting thing that, you never think about as a consumer. Do you think about the fact, based on, and I guess I'm a frequent business traveler in normal times. So to me, I never spend any time thinking about whether an Uber or a Lyft would be available. By the way, you notice it never even occurred to me to call a taxi.
Exactly.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, shift, no big deal. But I think that, that being able to have some kind of predictability and being able to watch things happen, being able to, we have serious supply chain issues that aren't going away anytime soon. By the way, did anybody happen to see that, ship stuck in the in the Suez Canal for a few days? There are thousands and hundreds of thousands of things on that ship, and the ones who were backed up that many of us are waiting on and will continue to be waiting on as a result of that. So it really is interesting times, and I definitely don't think that we're anywhere close to being through our supply chain challenges. So, and that, again, the power of data at your fingertips and those real-time insights.
Yep.
All right. Well, lastly, I think that, my last key trend that we identified in the report was really a shift toward alternative growth sources and, getting creative in, how you reach customers and what messages they want to receive. And, you know, um, CPG companies, for instance, primarily sold goods and services through brick and mortar retail locations, right? And I think that we talked about this on a webinar we did recently, David, as well. But, there are some things that I might have normally gone to Target and shopped for, or gone to a Walmart and shopped for, that over the course of the last year, I haven't. And so if your primary method of consumer discovery and or reminding consumers that they like whatever it is you make and that they should buy it is being on a shelf in a store, probably not the best strategy. And so it really is all about understanding what those alternative growth sources are, how, that we've seen very clever partnering of brands over the course of the last year or so. Oh, you like this? Well, what about this? Or I can't think. Maybe you have some examples, sort of companion brands that aren't the same company, but if you buy pet food from us, you might also like these dog collars or whatever. I mean, I'm seeing clever partnerships out there, but really a lot of it comes down to, what kind of messaging it is that customers receive. How tailored is it? How personalized is it? How smart are we about being where they are and letting them know what it is that we have that they can't live without?
It's interesting. I keep that your little saying from a few minutes ago about consumers don't use digital, they are digital.
Yeah.
Just keeps kind of bouncing around my head because I keep thinking about, and we did talk about this, I think, on that other webinar that we did, about how sometimes people push back and say, well, I go to a retailer because I can buy all these different brands at one time.
Right.
I'm not going to go to, P&G's site and then
Yeah.
Frito's site and then Nike site. But if you really think about it, for those brands that we know and love, if you know me and can then weave into my life and really leverage the fact that I am digital, not that I use digital,
Right.
is it really that much of a stretch for people to go to? It's not that hard for me to go to a branded website. And for not all my brands that I buy, but the ones I know and love and trust, it seems pretty, I think there's a lot of staying power to to DTC.
Well, I think it's also really important to understand the power of this.
Yeah.
And I can promise you that 90+% of my purchases, and my husband lovingly calls me a consumer, are made on this device. And through discovery, either by way of an email from a brand that I've done business with, or in a social channel like Instagram or Facebook. And my teenagers send me TikTok videos of people talking about things that they want me to buy for them. And so, I think that understanding that is really important. And, I said that customers don't use digital, they are digital. That actually comes from a huge research report that we did, David, that we did in partnership with SAS. And we did this report in late 2019, and then we did another pulse survey in 2020, kind of once the pandemic had started. And this research was so fascinating because we interviewed 4,000 representatives, 2,000 from the brand side and 2,000 from the consumer side, talking about customer experience. And from the brand side, we learned what they thought, and what their strategies were and what they expected moving forward. And the consumer side, we learned that in many cases, what they thought or expected to do or planned to do or expected from a brand was different than what the brand thought. And so it was a massive global study that really produced some interesting insights. And part of that is really that customers don't use digital, they are digital. So I'll send you a copy of that report. I think you'll enjoy it.
I definitely would. You guys do such great work, so that would be awesome. It's funny. I was thinking, you're just kind of talking about expectations and sort of kind of different frames of reference. I saw something funny last night. I guess somebody, remember the old 3.5-inch floppy disks?
Yeah.
Someone showed that to a 9-year-old, and the 9-year-old said, "Oh, that's really cool. You 3D printed the save icon." And all of a sudden it hit me that, wow.
That's what that looks like.
That's what that, they don't, the next generation, when they click the save icon, they aren't thinking about that that's a disk. That's just a save icon. And it really opened my eyes around sort of that whole kind of, really understanding who your customer is or your consumer is and kind of getting into their shoes, the whole persona and design thinking kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it was like, wow, she 3D printed the save icon.
Yeah. And I think really for me, it all comes down to, I think that we can't come into situations where we say, this is how we want customers to behave, therefore, this is how they behave. This is what we want them to prefer. Therefore, I like email. Everybody likes email, right? So this is how we're going to reach them. And I think that sometimes on the brand side, I think sometimes there is that kind of thinking. And I think that you have to step out of it and you have to say, all of my preconceived notions aside, my team's preconceived notions aside, where does all our data live? How is it interconnected? How can we access and use it easily? And how often are we, getting deep into that data and really looking at what it's showing us? Because what it should be showing us is our customers tell us by every act exactly what they prefer, even when they go away, right?
Yeah.
You just haven't done anything for me lately, right? So I say, to me, it all ends up, that whole winding road all ends up in you know, where is the data housed? How accessible is it? How are we able to apply it? And what can we do from that? How can we springboard from that and make everything about interacting with our brand and the ease of buying from our company and customer loyalty about and excitement about our products? You know, all of those things really rely on the right CDP technology solution, I think.
All about the data driving insights, driving action.
Yep.
So
that was fantastic. Well, thank you, Shelly, for the insights into the CPG trends for 2021, and also being our first guest on the show. And also thank you, David, for your summaries and real life examples. And once again, thank you all for joining us. For more videos like this, please make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to turn on the bell for all notifications. And we'll be back in 2 more weeks with more topics for CPG Bytes. Thank you all.
thanks. Bye-bye.